Hi, YouTube. My name is Wenona, and I just wanted to take a brief opportunity to speak on the whole Eddie Long situation, being crowned king of Atlanta. Um, I didn't at first feel like I needed to say anything because it was so ridiculous and so hilariously funny that I just was like, okay, I'm going to just let it sink in exactly how foolish and crazy this is. So I'm not going to say absolutely anything. Um, I do feel like now is the time for me to respond to that. I'm not really that popular, or I don't do a lot of YouTube videos, but when I see something as crazy and asinine as this, I think it warrants me having to come on here and just give my 2 cents. I also want to give a shout out to a lot of the video responses to the coronation of Bishop Eddie Long. Hilariously funny. I have had such a good time looking at all of the videos because it is, at first glance, it's really comical. The whole coronation of the King of Atlanta is comical. It's really funny. And I know that, there's going to be a lot of comedy material that's going to come about because of this, because it's hilarious. Nobody in the world is taking this guy seriously, okay? As they should not take him seriously. I just want to get into the seriousness of this though. Aside from the fact that it's really comical and really funny, this whole situation, it underneath is a whole lot. It's much more sinister and much more serious deal than I think a lot of people realize. About a month or so ago, I was led to write a book, my first book, entitled The Makings of a False Prophet. And I wasn't really sure why. I do believe God had me writing the way that I wrote. And I'm not going to get into detail on what I wrote, but I did chronicle the life of Jim Jones. Now, I don't know. Some of you may know who Jim Jones is. Some of you may not know. But Jim Jones was a cult leader. He started out as a Pentecostal preacher, and he ended up a cult leader that led to the what they called mass suicide of almost 1,000 people in Guyana. He started out as a Pentecostal preacher in Indianapolis, moved his church to San Francisco, called it the People's Temple. The People's Temple was a regular Pentecostal church. It was a mega church. At its height, it had over 3,000 members. Jim Jones was a very influential and popular, even popular, even a powerful speaker. He had influence with politicians and presidents and Angela Davis. He had Angela Davis over to his house all of the time. Okay? So this guy had some influence. He had some pull in the 70s, okay? And he came up against some allegations that he was having sex with some of his members, as well as misusing or abusing funds of the church. And the very next day, when those allegations came out, he called the People's Temple members and said, "Hey, we're moving to Guyana and we're going to form Jonestown. If you want to come with me, come on. I'm leaving tomorrow." And 1,000 people left everything that they knew, left their loved ones, left their property and everything, and went to another country in Guyana in the middle of the jungle and blindly followed this guy. And the thing that strikes me, the similarities are scary between Jim Jones and Bishop Eddie Long. The members blindly followed him. When he was, abused of sexual misconduct, nobody called him to the carpet in the church. Nobody questioned him. Nobody held him accountable to his actions. Okay? Bishop Eddie Long, when he did what he did with the young men, hardly anyone ever called him to the carpet. No one held him accountable or anything. And then he goes and he, offers a cash settlement, pays the boys off. But he's still not held accountable to what he did. And, I will say, I believe Eddie Long is a false prophet. I don't believe that false prophets begin out as false prophets. If you do your research in the Word, I don't want to preach. Um, Balaam in the Bible, Balaam, he was in danger of becoming a false prophet. If you know the story of Balaam and Balak, Balak called Balaam and said, "Hey, I want you to curse the children of, the Israelites. Just curse them for me." And he was a true prophet, and he was on his way to do it. But then God changed his mind on the way. Okay? And if God hadn't intervened, and if he had not been obedient to the leading of God and said what thus saith the Lord, and started prophesying instead of prophesying, he would have turned from a true prophet, which he was, to a false one. And I believe that's what's happened with Eddie Long. A lot of people don't remember when Eddie Long first came out. He was, just this humble Baptist preacher who wanted more of God, you know? And he's gotten a little money, a little power, a little position. And then when you mix the sexual perversion into it and nobody holds you accountable or responsible for your actions, nobody reprimands you for your actions, then you have the makings of a false prophet right there. And if you look in my description box right down below, I have the website where you could get a copy of my book if you want to read more about Jim Jones and find out the similarities between him and Eddie Long. It is www.endtimeebooklibrary.com. And there are other books at that library, at that website as well, that would help people who are caught up in the organized, institutionalized church system. This is a wake-up call for people to get out of the institutionalized church. I was licensed to preach back in 2005, and I was also a member of and studied at the Potter's House School of Ministry. And I will tell you, the whole organized, institutionalized church system has become corrupted, and it's no longer a safe place for believers to be. So I'm telling you that it's time to come out of that. I implore you, I encourage you to get out of there now. If this Eddie Long situation has not opened your eyes to what's going on in the institutionalized church, I hope that you will hear what God is saying. And the book, I mainly wrote it for people who feel the call of God on their lives to ministry, but also to those who are already in ministry. We have to really check ourselves. If you're in ministry, we have to really check ourselves and find out if we are doing what God said to do. Because if we do what we're wanting to do in ministry, you could become another Eddie Long or another Jim Jones and harm thousands and maybe even millions of people. So a lot of what's on the End Time EBook Library website are books that will help you look at the many faces of religion. There's a book there by Pam Shepard called The Faces of a Religious Demon. Excuse me. My book, The Makings of a False Prophet. And there are other books there that would help you to discern the hour that you're living in and to discern what's going on in these churches. Black people, I want to encourage you, don't let nobody treat you like you're an idiot and you're a dummy. If it doesn't look right and if it doesn't feel right, if the Spirit of God is saying, hey, look, something's not right with this, trust that voice inside of you that is God telling you to get out of that. I do not, I don't understand why black people just blindly follow things and they're scared to confront corrupt religious leaders. But it's time out for that now. There are people dying at the hands of these religious leaders. Time out for that. I was attacked by a religious leader. Choked me almost to death. Okay, I don't want to get into my story. But I just want to encourage you guys. If you're stuck in a religious system where you're in bondage, where you're afraid, where you feel like you can't even, ask a question. If you have a question about the Word of God, or even if you have a question about what your leader is doing or living, you need to leave that church. You need to leave that church and don't look back. Anything you feel in you that's saying, hey, I want to go back to help those people, that is not God. Because only God can lead those people out of there. And, the reason why you're looking at this video now is because God is saying, hey, wake up. This is really happening. So, let's not fall for the false prophets. We're in the last days. There are going to be a lot of false prophets out here. And Eddie Long is one of them. Jim Jones was another false prophet. He didn't start out one, but he ended up one. So I just want to encourage people to keep your head up. Don't get rid of your brain when you enter a church building. If something doesn't seem right, get out. And just ultimately seek the face of God. Seek the face of God. And I apologize to the world for, I don't blame you for making videos and cursing Eddie Long out at all. I don't judge you. I don't, because it's ridiculous and it is buffoonery and it's ridiculous. And I'm not in the church buildings anymore, so I don't feel a part of that. But it's still reflective, as a whole, on what people believe the church is. I apologize to the Jewish people. I apologize to our people. But ultimately, I want to say, hey, this is proof positive. If nothing else, up until this point, has proven that people need to come out of the institutionalized church system, this situation with the ordination of Eddie Long as King of Atlanta is proof positive that it's time to come out the church. So I implore you to come out. God bless you.